As someone that already has an existing 12.9-inch iPad Pro 5th generation, I have been testing out the new 13-inch iPad Pro that just got released recently. And before I even get into the details, I just want to start by saying I love my existing 12.9-inch. I have no issues with it. I still use it every single day. And because I love it so much, I have been trying to find a reason to basically get the next best thing. Not because I don't love this, not because I have any issues with this. It's more that, you know, when you love something so much, you're just like, oh my God, you know, I'm excited for the next thing that works even better than this. What can even be possible? I have been saving money just so that I am ready for the next best thing. Now, keep that in mind. I do have a higher bar when it comes to judging the new M4 iPad Pro. Here is the new iPad 13-inch M4 iPad Pro. And I'm gonna tell you this straight up. I did wake up early to watch the iPad event at like 6 a.m. in the morning when they were presenting it. And you know what? Overall, I was overwhelmed. But believe it or not, I just had to get my hands on it just to test it myself to really understand if it's really worth the upgrade. So I'm going to share with you what are some things that I expected, what are some things that I was disappointed about, and what are some things that really stood out and I end up really liking. So first things first, when I compared the two things side by side, so this is the old existing 12.9-inch back in 2021, 12.9 5th generation. This is the new MacBook Pro. So you can see by side, you probably can't really see it from the camera, is that the color space gray and space black is not super different, but the space black is darker in color, which actually, you know, looks really cool and looks really nice. Now, I will tell you the first thing that I noticed when I bought the new M4 was that it was so much lighter. Even just through the box, when this was handed to me, there was a second that I was like, wait, is this the empty box? So that is there to show you that it was really light. And some of you might be thinking like, well, shouldn't you already know that before you purchase it? I actually pre-ordered the iPad M4, so I didn't actually get to put my hands on it before I order it. And by the time I picked it up, that is pretty much the Wednesday, I think May 15, that they had it first time on display. So anyway, that was like the very first thing that I did notice when I first picked up the iPad at the Apple store, is that, even from the box, it was much lighter. And of course, when I opened it and actually looked at it myself, it was much lighter and thinner. And that was something that was noticeable right away. And that was the thing that you probably would have expected, because that was the one thing that they continue to advertise about, that it is the thinnest, you know, iPad that they have ever made. And this was like the one that they wish they made at the very beginning or what have you. It is thinner than the iPad Air. And if you look at the Apple Pencil, it is like thinner than the actual pencil. So anyway, it is a nice thing, but I will tell you, using my 12.9 5th gen for a long time, the weight was never really an issue for me, only because whenever I do use my iPad, I have a little stand that I use. So usually basically I have it on the table majority of the time if I were to like write or do anything. So it's not like I ever really do anything, you know, hand holding it in the air or anything like that. And I don't often travel with my iPad that much. Like, yes, I put it in the backpack. Sometimes I bring it into the office, or I'll bring it to a place that I know I'll get bored. But more often than not, I use it at home and maybe when I'm in the office. So usually is within an environment that I wouldn't really be carrying a lot, like walking backwards. So the weight itself was just not something that I was convinced to buy when I saw the actual Apple keynote. It's like a nice to have, I would say. Now the second thing that y'all hear from Apple is that the OLED screen. Now, to be quite honest, I am someone that is not crazy about OLED screen, how much brighter, how much the blackest, the darkest, or whatever. Like my eyes aren't great, so to me, it's not something that I could really tell the difference majority of the time. And when I watch movies and when I just scroll through the apps and when I do my normal thing in my app, I did notice a difference. It was actually, black is like more, color is brighter when it's supposed to be brighter, and the black space did seem deeper in color, which is great. But again, OLED was not also something that I really cared about. So having the OLED in the new iPad and lighter and thinner still wasn't something that was enough for me to like, wow, this is amazing. Now the third thing of course that they said is a the super upgrade is the M4 chip. And one thing that when I was watching this and I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, like how much faster is it really? And I would say that was one of the biggest reasons of what compelled me to explore the new M4, because my existing iPad is still great. It's perfect for everyday use for things like entertainment, web browsing, watching videos, things like that, or just notes taking. However, every once in a while, I would use Final Cut Pro and do editing. Now, this not original, but my existing iPad, I have very low storage. Like I have one of the lower gigabytes on this, and this is the M1 version of the iPad Pro back then. And so whenever I would, try to edit my videos, it would crash a lot. And I remember when I was actually doing the original review of why I'm not going to upgrade to the M4, I couldn't even export the video because it just kept crashing. And at that moment, even though I knew it might not be the sole reason why my video was crashing, I was thinking, hey, maybe if I had the M4 chip or just more storage option, that the video editing experience will be that much better. So honestly, I was just giving myself a reason to like upgrade and really try out the new iPad. So for that, I was like, okay, maybe the M4 is the answer to this problem. So let me actually upgrade. So I upgraded. Now, what do I think? I would say for everyday use, like browsing the web, watching videos, things like that, you're really not gonna notice the difference. I did not. Like as an everyday user for regular tasks like taking notes, things like that, the speed felt exactly the same. M4 didn't actually make a difference. Now, when I did use Final Cut Pro to edit some of the videos just to try it out, there were some differences when it comes to at least not crashing when I was trying to edit the video, which was something that just continuously happening in my existing 5th gen iPad Pro. And so far it doesn't have this problem, and I'm not sure exactly. Don't come for me for the savvy techies out there. It may be, again, not correlated at all, but I did notice that the app was actually not crashing when I was trying to edit on this iPad. But aside from that, if you are a regular user like me, like you don't use the iPad for heavy gaming, heavy workflow, and things like that, you really use it for like an entertainment device, you likely won't see a big jump in terms of performance from the M1 or M2 model to the M4. So for that reason, I wouldn't recommend just for the sake of the M4 chip to even upgrade. So the first big 3 reasons of like basically what is new and great about the M4 iPad is like, I would say not really good reason to upgrade, especially if you already have an existing iPad that works really great for you. Now, let's talk about then what stood out to me and what do I actually like about the new iPad M4. So as y'all know, the Apple Pencil Pro was one thing that they really advertised as something new. Now, this I would say was one thing, even just watching the Apple event, I was like, it looks pretty cool. It has now a sensor on the Apple Pencil where you press it, you could feel it. It has haptic response. And also there are now the new capability where you could basically like press the iPad Pencil and it shows your entire palette kit, and you could just kind of choose toggle back and forth erasers, pen, highlighter, etc. Like as soon as I saw that, I thought, okay, that is actually cool, because as a person that writes a lot, so I am like an avid note taker with my iPad. That's actually the one thing I love most about using my iPad, is just the ability to easily brainstorm and just write infinitely of whatever the thing that I want and just plan out my day. And so when I saw that ability, I loved it, because that is actually one of my struggle as a note taker, is that not every single app has the ability to just seamlessly change back from even pen to eraser. Look, I get it. There's that feature where you like tap this thing and but it never works for me. And I don't know if it's because I have nails or like, I feel like my finger is weak in general, so that whenever I tap this, sometime it works, sometime it doesn't. So it's typically never the route that I go to switch back and forth. It's just something that I feel like I could not rely on. So usually I would use the GoodNotes app that I have, and I use that as a way to basically automatically set, if I go eraser, as soon as I finish using it, go back to the pen. And that's just an ability that GoodNotes have as an app. Other apps like native app from Apple doesn't have that, like the Freeform app and their Notes app and things like that. So usually, as much as I like using Freeform, for example, because it has this infinite like paper white space that you could just write and draw anything you want. For the longest time, that was like the one downside that I didn't like using freeform, because just the constant like toggle back and forth. But now with the new Apple Pencil Pro, this experience happens so much easier, and I realized I liked it so much more than I thought I would. Now when I actually go back and use my original Apple Pencil that is not the Pro version, when I use like the regular version now, I actually like miss the new Apple Pro. And that is something that I did not expect myself to even like really notice the difference or really care for the differences in this like huge sense. Like literally now when I use the older iPad, the 5th gen, I literally would like miss my new iPad and miss using the pencil, because I'm like, oh, it's just so much more efficient that way. And you know me, anything that helps me with my workflow to be more efficient, I love. So that was actually a huge winner, and that is something that I did not realize that I would love so much in the new Apple Pencil Pro. And of course, they did talk about, especially if you're an artist, if you have Procreate, like your efficiency is just even greater with the Apple Pencil. And for me, when it comes to Final Cut Pro, there's a more capability there that I realized with the hover over capability. Now I could just scroll through my timeline in a much easier way. And just my interaction with my iPad, it feels more interactive, because the responsiveness to even me hovering over the app, just seeing the shadow where my tip, I don't know, even though they sound such minimal things as to what it can do, I thought that too originally, like, okay, it's cool, but does it really matter? Does it really make a difference? And from a delight standpoint, I actually really enjoyed it, and I feel like it's actually worth the upgrade. And you could see I did have to upgrade the Apple Pencil. I went through the painful realization that originally I missed the fine print, that the M4, I thought it was compatible with the older 2nd gen Apple Pencil, and then I realized it's actually not compatible. Like you have to upgrade to the new Apple Pro in order to really use it. And so I just bite the tongue and got the new Apple Pencil Pro and just tried it out so I could really get the full experience. And I don't regret it. I actually think it's really great. Like I am really happy with the Apple Pencil Pro more than I thought I would. Now, the other thing about the M4 is that you do have the option to get the nano texture glass screen or the glass screen. And you could see by like just the reflection that you could tell this is the glass version. So I did not get the nano. And also because the nano is only available for folks that have 1 terabyte or higher. And I got the 500 something gigabyte. So I don't even have the option to get the nano. And I don't think I would have gotten the nano texture screen anyway. It's because I am a germaphobe. So I love like cleaning my iPad whenever I take it out to a public place, put it in like a public desk or anything like that. So the nano texture seems to be way more high maintenance. I think it comes with a cloth that you could clean and etc. And usually I would use like wipes, like the cleaning wipes, to like wipe my iPad to just like desanitize the iPad, which, you know what, I probably shouldn't even do that, but I do. So anyway, I don't really take extra good care of my iPad. And as you could tell, I don't even put a case on my iPad. And yes, I live life, you know, on the edge here. And this I have had since 2022 or something like that. And if you look closely, there are dents on the iPad because I've never put in a case. But luckily, I haven't dropped this iPad in a hard floor surface yet, or concrete floor. I have dropped it on my carpet floor from like my bed to the floor, and it hits the chair or something like that. So there are dents and it works perfectly. But yeah, like, so just for someone who is just not super conscious of, you know, protecting the iPad, just having the nano texture, I don't know, it just seemed high maintenance. And look, maybe it's actually better protecting your iPad screen, but it just wasn't something that really stood out to me. And also because of OLED, I actually think the color would be much brighter and more vibrant when it is not in the nano screen, because when it's nano screen, there is like that kind of shadow looking haze where it does feel like the screen is not as bright and clear as much as it could be. And having a glare on my iPad was never bothersome for me because, again, I never really bring it out to like a super sunny condition motion or anything like that. So glass is fine with me. And then as to the camera, like yes, you will notice that they now, if you could tell, they remove a camera. So like if you compare to the older version to the newer version, like a camera, like a little thing is missing. But to me, it's not a big deal because even with my original iPad, I rarely ever use the camera. Maybe the only time I ever use my camera is like to scan documents. So it doesn't really matter for me. And the other cool thing that they did change the camera position. Most iPads have it on the side. Now they did switch the camera to the center, which is great. But again, I don't really even take FaceTime calls or do any video conferencing in my iPad, so it's not a huge deal for me. But one thing that I thought it was cool is that I do use like Face ID to unlock my iPad, and most of the time the camera is on kind of like the right, exactly where I would hold my iPad. So more often than not, whenever I try to use my Face ID, my finger's actually covering the camera. So now with it positioned at the top, I do feel like it's easier for me to unlock the iPad with Face ID now that it is centered. It's just easier for it without me accidentally covering, because usually this is the position that I would hold my iPad. And the other thing that some of folks have brought up is, what about the speakers? Now that it is much thinner, does it impact the sound? I thought maybe it would too, but I can't tell the difference. Like compare at least to my existing 12.9 inch, it sounds just as good. It sounds just as powerful, could go just as loud. I have no issue with the speaker whatsoever. So if that is something that you're concerned about, unless your ear is super good, it probably is. I personally couldn't tell the difference. So no loss there in the speakers. So now, what is the overall verdict? Am I regretful that I upgraded? What do I think? So I think that as someone that if you already own an existing iPad, especially like any of the M1s or iPad Air even, that is like basically if you're just an everyday user and you enjoy and like your existing iPad, I would say there is really no reasons to upgrade to this newer version, because it's, I think, minimal improvement, unless again like having it so much lighter is like a big thing for you, or if you do a lot of heavy loads, so you're not necessarily like, I would say, a typical everyday user, which is basically mainly entertainment on the iPad, like web surfing and video watching, then yeah, maybe you have a reason to. But or if you love OLED so much. But I would say if you already have one that you love, there's probably not a good reason for you to upgrade. Now, as for those who maybe it's gonna be your first time considering buying a new iPad, overall an Apple iPad, then yes, I do believe the newer version, I mean, it's always the latest, usually is supposedly the greatest, right? So yeah, like if this is your first time considering buying an iPad from Apple, the new Apple Air, I think is actually amazing. Like if I was that person and I want to get the most cost saving, but yet like biggest return of my buck, I might consider the actual iPad Air, the new one with a bigger screen. I think now they have like 12.9 too, right, as an option. I think that will be the one that I would actually go with, because you're really getting like the most of the benefit there, and it's much cheaper than the Apple iPad Pro. Now, and if you're like me, you're just like a super tech nerd, and I just get so excited for like the latest technology. And after using, comparing, I actually do like the new M4, and I think what I have thought about trading this in or just giving it to my siblings so they could have an iPad if they don't already have one. But I do really like the new M4 iPad Pro 13-inch, and I do think I'm gonna keep it because I do see a difference in me using it, feeling like, there is like a difference that I see, even though if it's super minimal. Again, not enough for me to say this is so great and worth the upgrade and worth buying. It's just more honestly my tech nerd self that feel like, yes, like it is better and it has a bigger storage. And to be honest, that was one of the biggest things. Not that I'm saying, it's probably cheaper for me to just have another solution for my storage, but you know what? At the end of the day, I could just see it in myself. I'm just finding a reason to almost justify this new iPad because I just love iPads so much in general. So it just makes me happy personally to get the latest and greatest version of it. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't think, it's worth necessarily the upgrade unless you just want the latest version regardless of what it really is. So anyway, those are my, initial thoughts and reaction from the new iPad 13-inch iPad Pro. And yeah, I will talk to you guys